All right, guys, welcome to Flavo Rihanna's MMA show. I'm your host, Flavo Rihanna, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. All right, guys, so this past Saturday we had UFC Vegas 29, headlined by the Korean Zombie versus Dan Ige. All right, the Korean Zombie was called out by Dan Ige after Dan Ige ended up having a good performance in his last fight. Normally, fighters don't call out the Korean Zombie, but I guess the Korean Zombie, after losing to Brian Ortega, he felt like he was in no position to say no. So we leave us now with UFC Vegas 29. If I can remember correctly, I believe Dan Ige last fought Gavin Tucker. All right, which is fine. Gavin Tucker, he needed that win. Was able to knock out Tucker very, very quickly. I believe in the first round in 22 seconds. Yes, in 22 seconds. But yeah, guys, so Ige's last fight, after that he ended up fighting Calvin Kattar, and that just didn't look that great. So that's why he took the Tucker fight, which I don't blame him whatsoever. Took the Tucker fight, and now this moves us on to the Korean Zombie. So for UFC Vegas 259, UFC Vegas 30, right? It wasn't the slobber knocker of a fight that I originally had anticipated, just because of the fact that usually when you see the Korean Zombie fight, you always see him in brawls. You always see him going at it, right? For example, the Brian Ortega fight, that was phenomenal. The Yair Rodriguez fight, that was phenomenal. The Korean Zombie has always been in hell of a wars, and this wasn't one of them. He had admitted that this wasn't the original game plan. What he ended up doing in these 5 rounds, I mean, he ended up taking him down, and he was just controlling Dan Ige. I mean, it was the greatest of fights that we've seen from the Korean Zombie. No, I mean, at some point, my mind was drifting off a little bit because I had a little bit high expectations of Ige versus Zombie, but we didn't get it. The Zombie ended up getting the victory, which I originally had predicted that, hey, he wasn't going to get it over Ige. I just felt like Ige wasn't going to have the opportunity to hurt Zombie in a slobber knocker of a fight, but which that did not happen whatsoever. So what's next for both individuals? Well, there was talks about having the Korean Zombie and Max Holloway, because of that fight ended up getting postponed. If they want to reschedule it, but I'm not sure if it's something that's going to be rescheduled, just due to the fact that, hey, Yair Rodriguez, last time we ended up seeing him fight was in Boston when he ended up fighting Jeremy Stephens, right? That was a rematch. That the first fight that ended up happening was in Mexico City, which ended up in a no contest because I think of an eye poke, if I'm not mistaken. And Yair Rodriguez was frustrated and furious, and he wanted to go after Jeremy Stephens, and which is Yair Rodriguez ended up handling Jeremy Stephens in Boston. I believe that was the co-main event. And that was the last time we saw him. That was, I believe, October or November of 2019. And that's quite a long time, all right? We're talking about more than a year and a half. So I imagine Yair wants to get in there because he wants to fight for a title. As for Max Holloway, how would you turn it down the Korean Zombie? I mean, this guy's a big name. I know Yair has a very big name as well, too. But the Zombie ended up saying that this guy doesn't have punching power, and that, the Zombie has punching power. I mean, that's kind of fighting words in my, I would take that as fighting words, considering that Max Holloway is one of the best punchers in in the UFC. This guy's a very ferocious striker, possibly one of the best strikers in MMA. But that's a fight that I would like to see. If we can't have Yair Rodriguez versus Max Holloway, which that's somebody in the comment section below had said that that's most likely a potential fight of the year, which I personally agree. I would say, hey, you know what? Have Zombie versus Max Holloway. Sign me up for that. If we can't have Yair versus Max, then have me Zombie and Max. That's a phenomenal fight right there. That's but I don't think that's gonna happen. What I do see happening is maybe the Zombie might have to take a step back. All right. I don't see him fighting Yair. I think Yair is only going to take Max or whatever the title shot, which I don't see how that's logical, because this guy hasn't fought in almost a year and a half. What I do see is maybe I don't think the Zombie's going to take too much of a step back, but I did reach out to the guys at MMAfighting.com like, hey, prediction wise, I had, Max Holloway as a possibility, Yair Rodriguez, but I don't think those things are going to most likely happen. What I do see happening is possibly we see maybe like Calvin Kattar, who had lost to Max Holloway but beat Dan Ige. So, you have Zombie and Calvin Kattar both have beaten up on Dan Ige. They can, get into the octagon. They have that in common. Also, possibly Josh Emmett. That's somebody that people need to look at 145. Remember, he tore his PCL, his MCL, his ACL when he ended up fighting Shane Burgos. And, he's been out since June of 2020. I could possibly see Korean Zombie versus Josh Emmett fighting little towards the end of the 2021, maybe possibly November or December. As for Dan Ige, I just see him taking a step back. He's a great 145er, don't get me wrong, but I just think that maybe him fighting with the elite of the elite is just not viable for him. He just needs to get himself up, because clearly what we saw when he dominated Gavin Tucker with that one punch knockout and put him to sleep, he's better than top 15, but I don't think that he's within I think like the best that he could possibly do is maybe like top 7. But yeah, so that's something that I see Dan Ige possibly fighting something of a Shane Burgos, and maybe Edson Barboza might be too much of a challenge for him, but I would say Shane Burgos, Hakeem Dawodu. I would love to see that matchup right there. I know Dawodu ended up having a loss. I can't pronounce this guy's name, but he ended up losing 29-28. So Dan Ige versus Hakeem Dawodu, that would be a great matchup. That's something that you could put on a fight night where fans could be drawn into that. So yeah, so that's something that we can see later down the line. Co-main event was Sergey Spivak versus Alexei Oleinik. Look, guys, I don't really have so much to say about this fight just because I think Alexei Oleinik's days of him fighting in the UFC is coming close to an end. I certainly do feel that Oleinik, he's already well past 40. All right, this guy's been fighting since like 1997. I think at some point Dana White has to talk to him and say like, what are you here for? I know you're possibly collecting a paycheck and you may need the money, but there's no real purpose in my eyes of seeing Alexei Oleinik continue to fight, this late into his career. I mean, the guy's in his early to mid 40s, and the only purpose of him being in part of the UFC is just, putting a prospect over, in which we can have plenty of other people do that role. We don't need Alexei Oleinik to do that. And Sergey Spivak ended up getting the victory. Alexei Oleinik getting the loss by decision. Okay. We also had a fight of the night, and this is something that I was looking forward to. Marlon Chito Vera versus Davey Grant. All right. This is the fight. If Ige versus Zombie was not going to be fight of the night, it was going to be Vera versus Grant. This is a rematch. Both these gentlemen had fought each other in the past, so I'm gonna look back on Tapology right now. Let's see, Vera, when did he fight Grant exactly? Nope. That was Lineker, Pickett, Kelleher. Yeah, they fought in February 27, 2016. That was a UFC Fight Night 84, Silva versus Bisping. That's when Anderson Silva and Michael Bisping were headlining that fight night and at the O2 Arena in England. So yeah, this was in Davey Grant's backyard. So this that fight ended up going by decision, the first fight, and Davey Grant ended up winning it over a young, early up-and-comer of Marlon Chito Vera. So this fight rematch is now 5 years into the making and lives up to the hype. I mean, my God. Whenever Davey Grant fights, guys, I mean, it's always, and I tweeted this out, he is facing, after the fight, it's him and the hospital bill, because he's always either breaking a bone or he absorbs way too much damage that it requires him to go into the medical room. Because, was it like the last fight, he breaks his hand, the fight before breaks his foot, and this fight, whoa, he took way too much damage. I mean, Marlon Chito Vera was giving him everything but the kitchen sink. He was eating up elbows, what's it called? Eating combinations, leg kicks, ground and pound, you name it. I mean, Davey Grant was a bloody mess. All right. I know Marlon Chito Vera starts his fights very slow in the first round, and then he ramps it up in the second and third round. Something similar to a Nate Diaz. All right. Not to say that I'm not trying to compare Chito Vera to Nate Diaz, but slow starters, and they rammed it up in the second and third round. At the end of the fight, I ended up giving it 29-28 Marlon Chito Vera. I know we had very different judges scorecards. I saw he had a 29-28. I saw we had a 29-27, and then I also saw something of a 30-26. My God, guys! I mean, the judges in Las Vegas, they need to get it together, because if they keep on messing up this bad with the point scoring, they're gonna end up getting it wrong, and they're gonna have something of a replication that we had in the PFL this past Thursday, where Rory McDonald ended up getting robbed of a fight, which the judges, they should have gave it to Rory, but then ended up giving it to the Brazilian. Next fight on the card that ended up happening right after Grant versus Vera was Julian Rosa versus Choi Sung-woo. Now this was a fun fight, because I even though it only lasted 1 minute and 37 seconds, the fight ended in 1 minute with 37 seconds of the first round. Whew. Choi Sung-woo looked like the real deal at 145, guys. Looked like the real deal. I know Juicy J, Julian Rosa, this guy is a tough cookie, but man, did he take some powerful shots. I mean, Korea might have something over here with Soo Wong Choi, because this guy has dynamite in his hands, and he was giving it to Julian Rosa. Julian Rosa ended up getting clocked numerous times, and I was surprised that he was able to stand up. His chin must be very durable, because of those punches that Choi was giving it to him. I mean, it would have knocked anybody out. Even it would have knocked out most what's it called, 145ers. This guy has heavy hands for a 145er. Choi Sung-woo ended up getting the victory by knockout. I believe he's now 2-0 or 3-0 in the UFC. Kid has a bright future. If he keeps this up, the UFC has something to work with when it comes to Korea. When the world finally reopens up fully, hey, that's a possibility. They can have something with him out there in Korea and build a brand for him. But yeah, phenomenal fight. And then we also had, a middleweight bout between Bruno Silva versus Wellington Thurman. Not Bruno Silva, the flyweight, making his UFC debut. Bruno Silva, I believe he ended up fighting for Ryzen, if I'm not mistaken, fighting Wellington Thurman, who is a pretty good prospect in my opinion. I mean, I like watching this guy fight. This guy is a good grappler. He has heavy hands. They call him the Prodigy. Lost to Andrew Sanchez. And yeah, guys, I mean, he's now officially 0-2 in his last 2 fights, but got knocked out by Bruno Silva. You do not want to be on the floor. You do not want to have your back against Bruno Silva, because Bruno Silva ended up grounding and pounding him and was put to sleep. What's next for Bruno Silva? I mean, I kind of want to see him fight Julian Marquez, guys. I want to see him fight Julian Marquez. I think that would be a phenomenal fight at middleweight at 185. Bruno Silva versus Julian Marquez. Sign me up, guys. Sign me up. As for the first fight of the card, Diego Lima, tough contestant finale versus the immortal Matt Brown. Now, I predicted Diego Lima was going to win, and obviously in the most Diego Lima fashion, I thought he was going to win by leg kicks, because obviously we knew that this guy was going to throw a ton of leg kicks, because Matt Brown is usually a little bit heavy on that front leg, and Diego Lima was just kicking and kicking and kicking. But I think he fell in love too much with the leg kicks, that Matt Brown kind of picked up the timing and just threw an overhand right around the same moment that Diego Lima wanted to throw his. But the only thing is that Matt Brown landed his first before Diego Lima was able to land his, putting Diego Lima to sleep face first, snoring, to end the fight with 3 minutes and 2 seconds. Guys, phenomenal stuff by Matt Brown. The 40-something-year-old Matt Brown shows that he still has something left in the tank. I want to see him fight fun fights at this point. I would like to see him fight Cowboy Cerrone or Cowboy Oliveira. Something along those lines, guys. Because Matt Brown still has something left in the tank, but we should possibly just let him do a Legends Tour. But yeah, guys, so that's all that's happened as of right now for UFC Vegas 29. Card, was pretty decent for a fight night. Would have expected a little bit more. It was a 6-fight main card, which is something that we normally don't get. Moving on to next week, we're gonna have Alexander Volkov versus Cyril Gane. That fight, that main card is actually gonna start at 4 o'clock. Weird time for a Saturday. Usually it's at 7, if not 10 o'clock. Sometimes even 8 o'clock, but at a 4 o'clock time. Wow, guys, that's something different. I didn't expect that. Looks like prelims are going to start at 1. Yeah, we have like Justin James, Charles Rosa, Yancy Medeiros, Warley Alves fighting on the prelims. As for the main card, yeah, it's Tanner Boser in the co-main event against OSP. Andre Touchy-Feely versus Daniel the Pitbull Pineda, Tim Dirty Burns Means versus Nicholas Dalby, and Renato Moicano versus Jai Herbert. And then obviously the main event is Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov. That's going to be a great fight. I'm actually going to predict Alexander Volkov winning with the upset over Cyril Gane. But yeah, guys, that's going to be a great card. The only problem is for me is just the 4 o'clock timing. I'm going to still be at work when this happens. I'm going to have to catch it on ESPN Plus on demand. But yeah, guys, great stuff. Can't wait. We're only a couple weeks away from UFC 264, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, the trilogy. I cannot wait for that card. That card is going to be stacked, guys. And I'm going to be here giving my predictions for that card. And for, Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov. I should probably be able to give you guys predictions possibly Thursday or Friday. So until then, guys, I'll see you guys later. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Until then, peace. And hit that like and subscribe button. That really does help.